The man intended to quench his thirst by the lakeside when suddenly a corpse floated up from the bottom of the lake. Startled, he quickly stood up to take a look. The lake's surface was covered with floating corpses. He decided to investigate in the nearby kingdom of Kuntala. Sure enough, a large group of bandits emerged from the forest, but instead of attacking them, the bandits targeted Princess Devasena, the most beautiful woman in the region. Just as the bandits approached, Princess Devasena swiftly grabbed a white veil to shield their view and thrust a steel knife directly into the heart of a bandit. When the white veil was lifted, her captivating eyes mesmerized Baahubali's heart. It was the first time he felt enchanted and attracted to a woman. In that instant, he already had a name in mind for their future son and vowed to marry this woman. Katappa, standing by his side, also saw through Baahubali's thoughts. In order to get closer to the princess quickly, Baahubali entered the forest and swiftly dealt with the pursuing bandits. In his heart, he vowed to go through fire and water for her. Soon, Princess Devasena quelled the small battle, and the local villagers came rushing over, expressing their gratitude. Afraid of revealing their identities, they hid in the crowd, observing secretly. Seeing how strong they were yet hiding behind woman, Princess Devasena felt ashamed for them. Katappa immediately lied, claiming that Baahubali was his mentally challenged nephew who had been expelled by his family and had nowhere to go. Feeling pity for Baahubali, Princess Devasena decided to train him in combat and make him a good soldier. Princess Devasena herself was skilled in martial arts but had failed every time she attempted to shoot 2 arrows simultaneously. Princess Devasena's cousin volunteered to teach Baahubali martial arts. Just as Baahubali was about to pick up the large hammer to give it a try, Kamara brought another spear, claiming that Baahubali couldn't throw it. In the end, Kamara decided to teach Baahubali swordsmanship. As Princess Devasena came to watch, Kamara demonstrated his mastery in front of everyone while instructing the man. Princess Devasena, knowing his abilities, immediately mocked and burst into laughter. Everyone watched with great interest, while Kamara taught Baahubali how to swing the sword step by step. Baahubali looked at the back of the princess's departure and suddenly became a little lost in thought and cut the stake in half with one stroke. Kamara was shocked and Katappa immediately complimented him on his natural strength. Princess Devasena, hearing the commotion, rushed over and also showed an expression of disbelief. That night, Katappa blamed Baahubali for trying to pursue the girl and suggested that he should just reveal his identity without going through so much trouble in the small kingdom. It turned out that Baahubali was the designated heir to the throne of the Mahishmati kingdom. According to the customs of the Mahishmati kingdom, Baahubali had to privately visit the small kingdom and understand the situation there before his coronation. The next day, in order to verify whether Kamara's martial skills had improved dramatically, Princess Devasena decided to take him to the farmland for hunting, with Baahubali secretly helping. Kamara's arrows never missed and always claimed the prey before Princess Devasena. After the competition ended, Princess Devasena became increasingly suspicious of this foolish man. Princess Devasena walks in front of Baahubali and pretends to trip, but he holds her up with one hand. Princess Devasena quickly realized that Baahubali was not an ordinary person. Baahubali fell in love with Princess Devasena the first time she saw her eyes, and in order to get close to her, he pretended to be crazy and came to Princess Devasena. Although Princess Devasena saw a flaw in Baahubali's hand, she couldn't prove it. In order to test him, Princess Devasena orders a bull to be brought in, and Baahubali drops his weapon and manages to avoid it. Feeling guilty, Princess Devasena ran over to check on his condition. Baahubali pretended to have a severely injured arm to deceive the princess. That night, the princess brought Baahubali back to the palace and called for the best royal physician to treat him. Katappa pulled Baahubali straight up and made him lie in the arms of Princess Devasena. The feeling of love surged within them. Princess Devasena advised Baahubali not to overthink and to rest and recover. Unbeknownst to Baahubali, his brother Balaladeva was already plotting a scheme to claim the throne. Balaladeva had spies monitoring Baahubali's every move and presented Princess Devasena's portrait to him, which deeply captivated Balaladeva. Balaladeva immediately approached the unsuspecting Queen Shivagami to propose the marriage alliance. Feeling guilty for not giving him the throne, Queen Shivagami readily agreed to the proposal. The next day, the royal envoy arrived in the small kingdom of Kuntala with a grand display of gold, silver, and jewels to propose to Princess Devasena. Facing the extravagant dowry, Princess Devasena remained unmoved. Not only did she resolutely and mercilessly reject the proposal, but she also retorted against the arrogant envoy, and Devasena sent a letter of reply to Empress Shivagami from one of her men. The vehemence of her words offended the powerful Empress Shivagami. who immediately declared war on the small kingdom of Kuntala. Bijaladeva advised Queen Sivagami against such drastic measures and sent a message to Baahubali, commanding him to capture Princess Devasena and bring her back for punishment. Baahubali mistakenly believed that Queen Sivagami was arranging his marriage and was overjoyed. However, just as he was filled with happiness, the sound of approaching enemy forces reached Kuntala. Baahubali hurriedly ran towards Princess Devasena's room but was intercepted by Kamara. With the invading enemies closing in, Baahubali had no time to explain. He immediately grabbed a carriage and hurled it toward the direction of the enemy. This action astonished Kamara. A large number of enemies infiltrated Kuntala, and Baahubali and Katappa fought valiantly together to slay them. In the midst of the crisis, they no longer concealed their identities, leaving the arriving king and his courtiers dumbfounded. Kamara sounded the alarm. Princess Devasena, who was still asleep, was suddenly awakened by the alarm bell and went to the gallery alone with her bow and arrow. A multitude of armed enemies breached the palace, but Princess Devasena remained fearless. She pulled her bowstring to the fullest and shot multiple arrows while retreating, just as the enemies closed in, for arrows were simultaneously shot from behind, blocking their attack for Princess Devasena. The one who came to her aid was Baahubali. Baahubali, who had always appeared foolish, suddenly displayed immense bravery. Princess Devasena saw Baahubali's true power and showed her admiration for him. In the moment of crisis, Baahubali taught Princess Devasena the art of firing 3 arrows simultaneously. Firing 6 consecutive arrows, they killed a large number of enemies. In their synchronized coordination, they managed to repel the final wave of enemies. Baahubali leaped in the air, using the bowstring to entangle an enemy's head and fling his helmet away. Working together once again, they swiftly dispatched the remaining enemies. A group of bulls with fire on their heads charged down from the mountain, causing the invading army of 100,000 to scatter in chaos. While everyone was trying to avoid the bulls, one man was caught in the middle of the herd. Unharmed, Baahubali spread his arms and leapt up on the back of the bull. He weaved his way ahead of the herd and then landed in a backflip. Baahubali was followed by a group of men. Baahubali commanded them to rush up to the mountaintop. With their right hands holding ropes with iron hooks, they arrived at the dam. Baahubali received the grappling hook with both hands and stepped on a wooden stake, quickly climbing to the top of the dam and securing the hook. The bulls pulled the ropes, instantly opening the dam's barrier, and the rushing river water submerged the invading army of 100,000. After the battle subsided, Baahubali approached the king. The king, besides being grateful, was also eager to know who he was and where he came from. Katappa told the king that this warrior had come only for Princess Devasena. The king heard that this was a good thing. Just as everyone was rejoicing, an urgent letter from the Mahishmati kingdom flew into Baahubali's hands. When he opened and read its contents, his face immediately turned pale. It turned out that he had just killed someone from his own country, and Empress Sivagami had ordered Baahubali to arrest Princess Devasena immediately and bring her back for questioning. Hearing this, Princess Devasena drew her sword on Baahubali's chest and asked him who he was. Then Princess Devasena smashed a torch against Baahubali's outer garment, causing it to instantly catch fire. Baahubali's battle attire gradually revealed itself. It was the golden armor that only the mightiest warrior was qualified to wear. Upon witnessing this scene, everyone dropped their weapons and fell to their knees in worship. Baahubali believed that Queen Sivagami wanted to give Princess Devasena to him in marriage. The previous rejection of his proposal was the reason why Queen Sivagami ordered Princess Devasena's arrest. Baahubali firmly believed that this was a misunderstanding and that he could easily resolve the matter by explaining it to Queen Sivagami. Baahubali earnestly pleaded with Princess Devasena to return to the Mahishmati kingdom with him and clarify everything with Queen Sivagami. Baahubali guaranteed, based on his integrity, that he would protect Princess Devasena forever. The next day, Princess Devasena dressed in splendid attire, preparing to meet her future in-laws. Accidentally, Princess Devasena stumbled on a plank of the boat. Baahubali decisively dropped his identity and jumped into the water. willing to be a bridge for Princess Devasena by using his shoulders to help her board the ship. Princess Devasena stepped on his shoulders, and every step felt like a taste of happiness. Such a gesture reassured the king and the queen. Princess Devasena and Baahubali embarked on the journey to the Mahishmati kingdom together. The swan-like boat, as white as snow, broke through the turbulent river and pierced through the clouds. Soon, the grand ship crossed the open sea and entered the borders of the Mahishmati kingdom. Princess Devasena was amazed by the magnificent architecture before her and witnessed the prosperous side of the Mahishmati kingdom. The heavy palace gates opened slowly as Baahubali led Princess Devasena to face Queen Shivagami. Princess Devasena sincerely apologized for her previous offense against Queen Shivagami. Queen Shivagami's words broke the deadlock, and the scene instantly erupted into laughter. Queen Shivagami asked Princess Devasena to return to her future husband's side. As Princess Devasena joyfully walked towards Baahubali, everyone was taken aback. The queen immediately stopped Princess Devasena in her tracks. After a conversation, it was revealed that Queen Shivagami had chosen Balaladeva as Princess Devasena's husband, not the man she deeply loved, Baahubali. Suddenly, the atmosphere became extremely awkward. Katappa immediately stepped forward to smooth things over for the princess, stating that both he and Baahubali had misunderstood the situation. However, Queen Shivagami disregarded the process and insisted on betrothing the princess to Balaladeva. Princess Devasena erupted in anger and confronted Queen Shivagami. Queen Shivagami immediately ordered her subordinates to seize Princess Devasena on the spot. Baahubali, defying Queen Shivagami's command, stepped forward with a sword. For the first time in his life, Baahubali resisted his own mother. This frustrated and angered Empress Shivagami that the child she had brought up had the audacity to disobey her in front of so many people. At that moment, Bijaladeva stepped forward and instigated Baahubali, forcing him to choose between the throne and Princess Devasena. Baahubali decided to surrender the throne and keep his vow to Princess Devasena. Queen Shivagami immediately announced, in front of everyone, that tomorrow morning Balaladeva would be crowned as the new king in a grand ceremony at the public square. 20 white horses pulled a carriage as it passed through the public square. Baahubali, as a general, cleared the way for Balaladeva with his sword. Baahubali shouted slogans along the way, urging the crowd to show the highest respect. At the public square, Balaladeva donned the long-awaited crown and officially announced his takeover of the Mahishmati kingdom. Simultaneously, Queen Shivagami bestowed upon Baahubali the title of general. Suddenly, the cheers for Baahubali from the crowd surpassed those for Balaladeva. With enthusiastic cries of "Long live Baahubali!" the clamor grew louder, creating a truly overwhelming spectacle that shook the ground. Even the elephants stood up in reverence and worshipped Baahubali. As Baahubali stood near the throne, the sunshade suddenly collapsed. With one hand, he caught it and firmly planted it on the throne, displaying his commanding presence. The overwhelming pressure made Balaladeva sit on the throne with unease and anxiety. In the evening, Balaladeva looked at the crown and declared his anger. He didn't feel the power of the throne at all. The crown was more like a custom-made one for Baahubali. Bijaladeva urged Balaladeva to order the elimination of Baahubali. Although Balaladeva sat on the throne, the real power still rested in the hands of Queen Shivagami. He plans to use Empress Shivagami to get rid of Baahubali. Shortly after, Princess Devasena became pregnant, and everyone presented gifts and prayed for their well-being. Taking this opportunity, Balaladeva arrived and used the excuse of caring for his wife to strip Baahubali of his generalship. Baahubali did not argue and obediently followed Balaladeva's command. Princess Devasena erupted in anger, questioning Queen Shivagami why she ignored such grandiose reasons. She even made a bold statement in front of everyone, hoping that Baahubali would ascend the throne according to the will of the people. The awkward situation caused the crowd to disperse. Soon, Princess Devasena fell victim to an ambush by the successor general. He ordered all women to be inspected before entering the palace, and he laid hands on each of them. When it was Devasena's turn, she decisively cut off the man's fingers. This played right into the cunning plan of King Balaladeva, who used this as a reason to arrest Princess Devasena and bring her to Queen Shivagami for trial. In the midst of their argument, Baahubali entered the palace wielding a large sword. Princess Devasena told her husband everything. This act shocked everyone. The enraged king believed that Baahubali was challenging his authority. Baahubali cuts off his wife's shackles and takes a firm stand that he has made the right judgment. Queen Shivagami erupted in anger, scolding him. The judgment of right or wrong should be made by the king himself. Queen Shivagami reduced their royal status to that of commoners and banished them from the palace for good on the charge of treason. Baahubali didn't argue but instead supported his pregnant wife as they left the palace. After being expelled from the palace, Baahubali came to the common people to work and make a living, but wherever he went, he effortlessly gained the trust and support of the people. He labored alongside the common folks, sharing meals and using his intelligence to improve their lives. As long as Baahubali was alive, King Balaladeva saw him as a threat. One night, Balaladeva returned to the palace and orchestrated a murder. He cut his own face with a knife and framed it on Kamara. And Balaladeva told Queen Shivagami that Baahubali was trying to usurp the throne. Empress Shivagami listened to them and decided to get rid of Baahubali. However, Baahubali's reputation was too great to openly eliminate him without inciting a rebellion. In order not to provoke a public revolt, the Shivagami Empress called on the loyal Katappa. When Katappa heard that he was to murder Baahubali, whom he had watched grow up, Katappa was shocked and fell on his knees, pleading with Queen Shivagami not to do it. He believed that Baahubali would never rebel, but Queen Mother Shivagami had already made up her mind. Katappa didn't want to kill Baahubali, took out his sword and just wanted to die. Meanwhile, Baahubali anxiously awaited the birth of his child. Suddenly, news arrived that Katappa had been taken to the forest to be executed for defying the queen's orders. On one side was the imminent birth of his child, and on the other side was the man he considered a father figure. Baahubali was torn between the two. Deeply concerned for both sides, Princess Devasena agreed that Baahubali should go and rescue Katappa. He swiftly rode on a fast horse and arrived at the forest. Baahubali immediately rescued Katappa, who was being tortured in the fire. He carried Katappa and took him to a secluded place, trying to free him from the shackles. Before Baahubali could fully understand the situation, arrows suddenly struck him from behind. Baahubali quickly turned around and was met with a barrage of arrows. He shielded Katappa from all harm with his own body. Struggling, Baahubali stood up, holding a large sword, and looked at the enemies with anger. He used his sword to cut off all the arrows on his back. As the enemy charged, Baahubali did not meet them but carried Katappa with great difficulty to avoid them. Despite being severely injured, he refused to let the enemies harm Katappa as long as he had breath in his body. After freeing Katappa from the shackles, Baahubali confronted the incoming enemies alone. He picked up a large iron chain and mercilessly killed a large number of enemies. Then, he threw the iron hook towards a distant dead tree, which had dozens of enemy bodies hanging from it. He set the tree on fire and burned the enemies on the tree. As the tree fell into the grass, the flames spread rapidly towards the enemy. In no time, the enemies were buried in flames and wailed. The leader of the enemies took up dual swords and challenged Baahubali. Baahubali turned around swiftly and faced the enemy head-on. Even without any weapons in hand, he easily defeated the enemy leader, while Baahubali was still fiercely fighting the enemies. Katappa, holding a large sword, slowly approached from behind as per the strict order of the queen. He pierced Baahubali's body through his grief. Baahubali turned to look at Katappa, unable to believe what he was seeing. With tears in his eyes, Katappa embraced Baahubali and revealed the truth to him. Baahubali held no resentment towards Katappa. In his last moments, he only asked Katappa to take care of his mother. Katappa handed Baahubali the sword, pleading for him to kill him. Taking the sword, Baahubali inserted it into the ground and let out a cry towards the sky. Then, Baahubali leaned on the hilt of the sword and departed from this world forever. Balaladeva, who was hiding in the shadows, slowly came to Baahubali's side, and while he was hacking at Baahubali's body, he narrated everything that he had planned. Now, Katappa finally realized that Balaladeva had deceived everyone. Katappa returned to the palace, dragging the blood-stained sword, and extended his hands, stained with Baahubali's blood, to report to Queen Mother Shivagami. Upon hearing this news, Queen Mother Shivagami was struck like a bolt from the blue. Katappa, who had always shown utmost respect to Queen Mother Shivagami, accused her of committing a grave crime this time. He told the queen that Baahubali, even in his dying moments, cared not for his own wife and child but rather showed concern for his mother. Shivagami, shocked by the truth, was filled with tears of regret. Princess Devasena, holding her newborn baby, also arrived at the palace. Upon learning of her husband's death, she instantly collapsed to the ground. Balaladeva and his son, who who were hiding in the shadows, also approached. They continued to manipulate Queen Mother Shivagami, urging her to kill the child to avoid further trouble. Queen Shivagami, who had come to her senses, of course did not listen to the slanderous words of the villains. Putting aside her position as Empress Dowager, she knelt down in front of Princess Devasena and stroked her feet to confess her guilt. The citizens who had gathered outside the palace were shouting, demanding an explanation from Queen Mother Shivagami. Shivagami, holding the baby, ascended to the balcony. She raised the newborn child high before the crowd and announced that a new king had been born. The loyal General Katappa rushed forward, placing the baby's tiny feet on his head as a gesture of eternal loyalty to the new king. Queen Mother Shivagami immediately ordered the capture of the traitor Baahubali, but to her surprise, he was already prepared. Katappa immediately grabbed a 1,000-pound gate and blocked all the soldiers to open the way for Queen Shivagami. Shivagami instructed Princess Devasena to leave the palace with her. Princess Devasena, who had just given birth to a baby, did not want to be a burden, and she had no regrets as long as her baby was safely taken away from her. Soon, Katappa was overwhelmed by the soldiers and was subdued. Queen Mother Shivagami, carrying the baby, escaped through an underground passage. The despicable Baahubali, driven by his lust for power, aimed his bow and arrow at his own mother. From a distance of 100 meters, an arrow struck Shivagami in the back, and she fell into the river, holding the child, disappearing without a trace. Empress Shivagami was forced into the fast-flowing river with her baby, and with her stiff body, she lifted the child high above the surface of the water. The child was rescued by local villagers and adopted. In the following years, Princess Devasena was shackled and imprisoned by Baahubali in the public square for 25 long years. Katappa told Shiva everything. When Shiva learned about his life, he fell on his knees beside his mother and his eyes turned red and he became angry. With clenched fists, Shiva stood up and issued a command to everyone. He declared that he, Baahubali, had returned and vowed to overthrow the tyrannical ruler. Seeking revenge for his father, he wants to reclaim his rightful throne. He wants to restore the dignity of his tormented mother. The new king Baahubali embarked on a path of revenge. A great battle was about to begin. King Baahubali deployed 20,000 cavalry to confront Shiva head-on. Shiva shot an arrow into a coconut tree, triggering a trap that brought down all the charging cavalry. Katappa, who was lurking in ambush, led his troops in a furious charge. Both sides engaged in close combat. Shiva, wielding a massive wooden log, relentlessly smashed it towards the enemy. At that moment, the enemy's horns sounded. Baahubali charged forward in a reaper machine, shooting arrows at the soldiers like a rainstorm. He dismounted the warhorse, holding a rope, and headed straight for Princess Devasena. After 25 years, Baahubali's fighting prowess remained undiminished as he captured Devasena and took her away. Shiva, who was still fighting, realized that his mother had been captured and rode after her on his horse. Shiva shot an arrow at Baahubali, but he caught it barehanded. Using his foot to step on Shiva's mother to humiliate him, Baahubali's chariots drove quickly into the gates of the city. Baahubali immediately ordered the gates to be closed. Shiva stood on his horse and leaped towards the city gates. Suddenly, an arrow struck his chest, causing him to fall heavily to the ground. The enemy unleashed another volley of arrows towards him. Shiva lost his mind and could not control himself. Katappa arrived just in time, using his shield to block the attacks and teaching Shiva not to act impulsively but to think like his father, Baahubali. Now, the only way to triumph was through strategic planning. Under Katappa's guidance, Shiva regained his composure and looked at the tall coconut tree. Formulating a plan, Shiva told the slaves to pull and bend the coconut tree downwards. Then a group of 6 held hands and cut the ropes and flew towards the ramparts. They landed safely with their shields in place. Others followed the same approach and began scaling the city walls. This trick broke right through the enemy's gate defense. Shiva killed the guards on the city wall one by one with his shield and great sword. More soldiers kept pouring onto the walls. Using his shield as a springboard, Shiva leaped forward, swiftly dispatching 5 enemies. Then he jumped to the center of the gate and grabbed a sledgehammer to break the chains of the wooden bridge. Clinging onto the broken chains, he climbed up to the edge of the gate. With a resounding crash, the wooden bridge collapsed, and Shiva safely landed along with it. The gates were opened, and he immediately rode his horse to the square to rescue his mother. Everyone else followed suit, and Shiva instructed Tika to light the torches while he retrieved the scepter. He put the fire pot on his mother's head and sent her towards the temple. Shiva formally challenged King Baahubali with his shield in hand. He jumped over numerous arrows and destroyed the propeller of the carriage. Shiva did a backflip and stepped directly on the bull's head. Enraged, the bull leaped, lifting Shiva high into the air. Simultaneously, they both hurled spears, and Shiva's superior strength caused Baahubali to fall from his horse. Baahubali, in a fit of anger, adjusted his hairstyle and unleashed his ultimate weapon, a battle hammer, engaging Shiva in close combat. The warhammer struck Shiva's shield and sparks flew everywhere. Even the ground cracked under their feet. After enduring 2 rounds of fierce clashes, Shiva's sword was broken by Baahubali's strike. Baahubali seized a large iron chain, locking it around Shiva's throat, and threw him several meters away. Suspending him high above a statue, Shiva used his bare hands to shatter the statue. Freeing himself from the bondage, Baahubali delivered a powerful blow to Shiva's back, causing him to spit out blood. Enraged, Shiva summoned all his strength to uproot a large tree and brought it crashing down on Baahubali's head. Both of them dropped their weapons and started fighting in close combat. The golden statue suddenly started collapsing due to the violent shaking. Standing atop it, they tumbled down together as the statue crashed to the ground. The statue's head broke through the corridor and fell into the middle of the river. Shiva pulled Baahubali down with a kick and viciously kneed his chest. Baahubali's sturdy armor saved him from certain death. Baahubali discarded his armor, revealing a fierce expression and muscular physique. The two clashed once again. Soon Shiva was pinned down by Baahubali, who tore Shiva's armor with his bare hands and grabbed him with one hand and tried to rip out his heart. Enduring the pain, Shiva broke free from the grip and reversed the situation. However, Baahubali kicked him away, sending him flying several tens of meters. Shiva struggled to his feet and applied flour to his wounds. He picked up the large iron chain from the ground, intending to use the same chain that once bound his mother as a weapon. With a powerful punch, Shiva shattered Baahubali's hammer. As Baahubali charged towards him, Shiva delivered another punch to his muscles. Shiva completely subdued the ruthless king, using the iron chain to bind Baahubali's feet and smashed him against the cage. Shiva dumps Baahubali in a pile of firewood. Shiva does a leaping thunderbolt and stabs Baahubali in the foot to immobilize him. Princess Devasena threw the sacred fire on the woodpile. It was the tree branch she had picked up in the square 25 years ago. Waiting for this day to come, Shiva successfully reclaimed his rightful throne, and his mother crowned him. Under Shiva's rule, the kingdom of Mahishmati entered a new era.